delighted to be having a toy-centered Toys as Text talk. That was a lot of T's. Wow. With author, creator, co-founder of Wandering Planet, Gavin Hignight. Gavin, thank you for joining.
Hello, thank you for having me. Doc, who is my partner on Wandering Planet, is sad he can't make it, but he's somewhere in the UK right now, probably, imitating the prisoner. So,
Yeah,
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 you
you
just
could
got
send
me.
pictures from the podcast and all of that and be like, this is what you're missing.
I believe me, I will. Yeah,
He might indeed be inhabiting the role of, allegorically speaking, the prisoner. It could be happening.
he could be. He's visited Port Merion before, and I wouldn't put it past him, where they filmed the TV series, just try to sneak out there again. So who knows?
Yeah, yeah. You are surrounded by Godzilla, and I see Paul Rubens back there. All of
Oh,
these
yeah, Pee-wee.
characters, yeah. Uh, I am impressed with your collection, and I have to say that I've continued to collect action figures as well. And there's just something about this representation, this little plastic piece, or sometimes pretty mid-sized plastic piece of pop culture. And it's not the play necessarily for me. I've attempted the play as an adult, and it's not quite the same. Making
No.
the sounds and stuff as an adult feels a little different, but there is something about the action figure world and something about that representation of fandom that's just it's cool. It has its own vibe going on with it.
Oh, I totally agree. I'm a lifelong collector. I was like one of those kids that did not garage sell their toys and, kind of held on to everything. And it's been fun, I think with like Instagram and the kind of culture of toy photography that's really kind of grown out of social media. Yeah, there are new ways to enjoy this stuff and kind of play with it as an adult that you don't, maybe feel a little silly making noises and stuff in the backyard. But yeah, I agree. They're little totems, I think, of the things that we love, right? Like they really represent, especially when we get to stuff that's really fantastical that, like science fiction or horror or stuff that we, we'd like a little sample of, but we don't have the opportunity to completely live in.
Yeah. Now, the latest creation that we're talking about on this episode is action figure set related to the prisoner. So I'm curious about this creation, this design process. What attracted you and Doc to this property?
Yeah, so Doc is a lifelong fan. He discovered the show on PBS in the early 80s. It was actually played after Doctor Who. So it was like, home run for him because he was a fan of both. I discovered The Prisoner much later. Actually, after I was already working as a writer, I was in a writer's room on a show, and my boss had made reference to The Prisoner, and I hadn't seen it, which is kind of crazy because I've really watched a lot of classic TV. I love old television, and we watched it, and I was instantly a fan. And a few years later, Doc and I are big toy collectors, and I was watching all these people like Fresh Monkey Fiction and Marauder Gunrunners making their own action figures and kickstarting them, and it just seemed like okay, these guys are proving you can do it yourself with crowdfunding is very important. And we were just like, let's do it. And we were kind of trying to figure out what would we make toys of? What's something we want that doesn't exist? And we landed on the prisoner, and we reached out to ITV through our attorney, and the stars aligned, and we were able to get the license based off of our pitch, which is, pretty exciting because big company like that, they didn't have to say yes. And we launched during the pandemic because we were crazy. Our retro kind of Kenner Star Wars style retro prisoner figures, which were 4 inch, they did really well. They did actually tremendously well. So we thought there were other prisoner fans and toy collectors out there like us that might want them. We were right. We've gotten to make two waves of those so far. Our second wave just shipped to all the backers of that. And with that, we were like, well, we've made retro. We love them. Here, I'll hold one up here. This is like our one of my favorites. This is number 6 from Checkmate.
Hmm.
Uh, and we were like, well, okay, we've done retro. Let's do, and I'm holding up the prototype for our new one. Let's do the 6-inch, 1/12 scale that are highly detailed, and that's kind of where we're at now. It's exciting. The fandom for Prisoner is very strong and very loyal, and we went to this larger size and detail, knowing that there was a hunger for it. We had fans saying, "When are you going to make something that are like Star Wars Black Series or like Marvel Legends?" And here we are.
Yeah, yeah. It was 67, 68, is that right?
That's
The
right.
years of
Yeah.
the original series. And quite the interesting science fiction story for people out there that haven't been exposed to it. The Kafka comparisons
Oh,
come to
totally.
be, and yeah, some of the political and psychological commentary that comes with that.
Absolutely. I mean, I have really found it's so layered and so masterful in its storytelling that um, I really enjoy it more on my second viewing. I enjoyed what I saw. I really like and it's only one season, right? I mean, it's fascinating that 50 years plus later, a show that had one season is still making an impact on new viewers, on old viewers. But yeah, the more I watch it, the more I like it. It's very rewatchable. There's always stuff you missed or new layers. He was brilliant. Everything about the show is brilliant.
Yeah, yeah. No, you mentioned that you're also a writer, an accomplished writer.
Oh, my most recent show that came out was RoboForce, based on the 80s toy line that kind of got nuked by
Mm-hmm.
Transformers. I worked with Nacelle Company, had acquired the rights and wanted to do a new animated version. And so Doc and I both, that's our day job is that we write animation and produce animated, TV shows. Often those do have a toy component, so there was some familiarity
Hmm.
there. But yeah, RoboForce with Nacelle Company's on Tubi. It's free. It's 6 episodes. Speaking of toys, they made modern RoboForce toys that are fantastic. So check those out too for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I was curious about that connection between like toys as text, telling stories with toys. Is that something that you did as a young person as well?
100%. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. I think that, and that's one of the things I like so much about action figures, I think, is that it prepped my mind for telling stories, right? You set your stage, you act out as, a scene, and with the great IP that we grew up with,
Mhm.
I was an 80s kid, so I had G.I. Joe, I had Transformers, I had, stuff like Knight Rider and A-Team, and a lot of those had action figures, and I collected a lot of, like, gosh, I could just look around my office, like Silverhawks, Thundercats. And then a little bit later in the early 90s, you get like the good Batman stuff. And anyway, yeah, it prepped my mind. And then I went from kid who was staging out stuff with my toys and entertaining myself and stoking my imagination to kid who was playing Dungeons and Dragons and Star Frontiers and role-playing games, which is another component into sculpting your brain into how to tell story, right? So it's no
Mhm.
wonder myself and Doc and a lot of the people we know, we all have kind of these similar touchstones in our kind of growing up, and toys and fiction and science fiction and fantasy are all involved.
Well, I love the relationship of toys and animation writing and animation storytelling as well because they live there side by side for me from our generation.
Totally. Yeah, it's
Uh,
funny. My very first gig as an animation writer was Ninja Turtles. It was the 4Kids entertainment version, nicknamed the 2000X series. And I remember when I got the gig, I was given this big packet of, here's what we've done so far. Here's the research. And I thought to myself, I've been doing research for this show since I was a teenager, right? Since I was a tween, because I was such a
uh,
Ninja Turtles fan with the toys and with the comics especially. Um, and so yeah, I think some of us in the animation industry have the good fortune to approach writing these shows as fans and thinking, what's a toy I would want? What's something I can put in the show that could get made into a toy?
Mhm.
So yeah, we're very lucky that this is the world we play in.
Yeah. Yeah. Other credits, Star Wars, Transformers. So you're quite quite established in the world of such fandom and writing.
Yeah, I'm like I said, I'm lucky. I've gotten to work on a lot of IP that I grew up loving and I still love. And um, yeah, Transformers was a really great chapter in my creative career. I was on War for Cybertron for Netflix, and then I was on Transformers Cyberverse for 4 years. And yeah, good shows and great memories. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, Now, as your venture Wandering Planet has come to be, anything that you'd like to say about the creative vision, the direction of the company, the kind of work that you like to do there?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Doc and I are very aligned on this. Uh, we really set out to make unique stuff that other people were not making. I wanted, I was a big like in Doc's case, he was a kid in the 80s and he was obsessed with The Prisoner. There were no toys, there were no collectibles. So we made them. The second IP we went after, which surprised people. Everyone thought we were going to do like the Avengers, as in, like the British TV show, or we were going to do something else, Spy, or, we came out with Nancy Drew. And because we saw the same thing, which was, and here I'll hold up a Nancy Drew that we made. I love these figures. Um,
Yeah,
there's,
cool.
yeah, the carded version. Um, and it was the same approach. It was like, what's a really cool character and IP that deserves a toy that has not received it? And we landed on Nancy Drew and worked with Simon and Schuster, who were just amazing. And you know, here we are. Nancy Drew fans finally can put little collectible action figures, next to their books on their bookcase. We actually even made, I'll pull this out, a book box, right? This is like we
Nice.
Jenny, who's our designer, just does amazing design. And we were like, well, you know what? What's a mystery? A figure hidden in the bookshelf, right? So, we just try to have fun, really respect the IP that we do go after, and really just try to surprise people with fun stuff. It should be fun. It shouldn't be stressful. I think one of the things that is stressful for us is distribution has definitely been the hardest. We've got a vision, we've got a great factory, but getting product into the hands of people who want it is an immense challenge. And I feel like every project we put out, we improve that more. But yeah, you know, we just want the people who see our logo to be happy when they see it and to think what's coming next, or I have this thing that I wouldn't have, but these guys somehow figured out a way to make it. That's kind of what most recently, we're on Kickstarter now to make these 6-inch prisoner figures, but prior to that, we had about 9 months ago did Laurel and Hardy, and
Hmm.
I'm a
Hmm.
lifelong Laurel and Hardy fan. I love them, and talk about two men who only brought joy into the world and comedy and happiness and positivity. So yeah, we worked with the team to do the official license, who have been amazing. Marcy over at Larry Harmon has been just like a friend, like who we talk about Laurel and Hardy with, and those toys are probably going to arrive, say August, September. Uh, I won't get totally into it. The tariffs have been a complete challenge for us,
Yeah.
like everyone else in
Yeah.
the toy industry. It's been brutal, but we've found a path, and Laurel and Hardy are still going to get put on a boat and come our way. So I have the prototypes too. I was telling you offline, these
Hmm.
just came in from our factory. I'll hold
Very
them up.
nice.
Yeah,
Beautiful,
Stan and
beautiful.
Ollie. Thank you. Yeah, it's really important, as with the prisoner, that we just get the details right, and we really everything we make is a love letter and homage to the IP. So details, yeah, details matter.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, you mentioned the crowdfunding aspect of
Ooh,
it, which I know is very important because I've learned that making toys is also not cheap, from the
no,
molds to what you were saying about distribution. It is a whole process.
it is. Yeah, I think there are costs that may be invisible to the consumer that are shockingly high. The tooling at the factory level um, is, I mean, like our little prisoner, our number 6 that I showed you earlier. It's a 4-inch figure. It has, 5 points of articulation, right? Like at the hips, the arms, and the neck. We snuck in wrist joints, so it technically has a little more. This is, tooling for this thing is around $19,000.
Wow.
And, you know, that's a lot of money. That is a lot of money. And it means that, little guys like us who are just doing this startup toy company, we don't just have that. But we can go to a platform like Kickstarter. We can show our virtual models. We can show our vision, and we can say, hey, if you guys trust us and you like what we're going to do, and you pledge now, which is basically like a pre-order, then we can gather up that money for the tooling and make these things that we want and we hope you want. And we've been really lucky. We've got a really cool community that's kind of grown around Wandering Planet. We were able to do Prisoner, we were able to do Nancy Drew, able to do Laurel and Hardy. I don't know how much crossover there is between those audiences, maybe a little bit. But yeah, it's without the crowdfunding component, niche stuff like this would not exist, right? No one's going to go, hey, Target, there's this cool show called The Prisoner from 50 years ago that's a cult following. How many orders do you want? We'll get them in your store. That world it's never going to happen. These toys would never be on a shelf at a Target. So there would never be pre-orders from a retailer like Target. But go directly to the Prisoner fans via crowdfunding, and we can all come together and do it. And that, I think Doc and I don't want to crowdfund for the rest of our lives. We want to keep building up the company to where it has enough strength to, just do a pre-order system. But for the time being, we're very appreciative of our friends at Kickstarter and our PR, David Hyde, who has just, magnificently guided us on the crowdfunding journey. Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to ask how you go about the process of selecting a subject, but it sounds like fandom is part of that. Anything else that you'd like to add about that piece of the
Yeah,
puzzle?
yeah, I think our approach is just going to always be making. We're definitely subscribers to the, make what you love, right? Make what you know and what you love. And I don't think we're ever going to like see an IP and think, oh, that's a moneymaker, so let's do that. We feel like by sticking to the things we want and the things that we understand and love, then we'll get the details right and we'll make them right, and therefore we'll get the response from fans. So yeah, we're really just determined to make cool stuff that hasn't been made that we like and we know others like. We in our journeys have talked to a lot of other toy companies. We talked to Brian Flynn a lot over at Super 7.
Mhm.
Fantastic guy, very successful, and very forthcoming with information and generous with his time. And we've done panels with him, and I've heard him, and this is me doing a poor quote of what he said, but he said, make something you love because you don't know, you could end up with a garage full of them, right? Like you could be sitting on a ton of
True.
them. And if it's something that you really love, then it's not going to hurt. You're going to look out there and you're going to be proud of this thing you made instead of, I thought I was going to make a lot of money on this and now I don't know how to get rid of them or whatnot, right? So I
Mhm.
think that was valid advice he gave us early on.
Yeah. Well, logistics wise, anything that you'd like to say about where people can find information about the company, support the Kickstarter, and then
Yeah.
anything that you'd like to say about what might be next?
Yeah, totally appreciate it. So, uh, like we were talking about with crowdfunding, it is a model in which we can't do it unless people come on board and pledge and pre-order and support the cause. So these prisoner figures are a 1/12 scale. I'll hold both of them up. We're making number 6, and we're
Hmm.
making number 2. Everyone's favorite number 2, Leo McKern. Uh, Arguably everyone has a favorite number two, but he is very popular. Um, they're on Kickstarter right now. We have a campaign that's going about 20 more days. It usually takes us about 9 to 12 months for the full manufacturing cycle. We think on Prisoner it'll be closer to 9 months because we've gotten so much of this type of work already accomplished with Laurel and Hardy. But yeah, we're most active on Instagram actually because we just love sharing toy photos. We love seeing toy photos, and we find it's just a more positive audience there. We're also on Facebook. Um, a good way to find us is just Googling Wandering Planet Toys. And then our Kickstarter profile comes up pretty quickly because this is our fifth campaign with Kickstarter. It's funded, by the way. The toys are going to be made. We're very excited about that. But we always tell people if you like them and you want them, don't wait for us to try to get into retail. The best time is to do it now with Kickstarter because then you're guaranteed your figure. Because we're still kind of breaking down doors, for retail placement. And yeah, just reach out. We're accessible and friendly. And what's next? Well, I can't say much, but we have another 1/12 scale figure right on deck, ready to go when this campaign is ended, probably within a few
Nice.
months.
Hmm.
There's some supernatural elements to the IP, I'll say that, and it's a beloved character that's never had a toy. We can't wait. It's a license we worked on for a number of years, and our partner on it's been great. And then after that, we're going to launch our third wave of Prisoner retro figures, and I don't know. It might be our final wave on the retro, so we're going big.
Nice, nice. Well, very, very glad to talk with you. Glad to give the space to talk about action
I appreciate
figures
it.
and fandom, and appreciate the work that you're doing. And certainly glad to have you back anytime to talk about the projects that are on the way.
Well, I appreciate it so much. It's just fun talking about this stuff. I hope there's never a time when it's not. But yeah, thank you for your interest and kind of looking at us through a different angle. And yeah, whew, it's an uphill battle sometimes, but more to come.